Twitch. Twitch is Twitch. Okay. I'm gonna get back to commentary. Yeah, that's Twitch, definitely. So let me see if I kind of lost where I was in my commentary a bit, so I want to start over. So this is Tetrisphere. This is an N64 game published by Nintendo in 1997. Despite the name, it doesn't have that much to do with Tetris. And I'm going to be moving really fast through the beginning, so stuff will start to make sense as I explain it. But the core mechanic of the game is that we have to line up 2 or more of these pieces and then drop a third piece on top of them. And ultimately, in rescue mode, we are trying to dig out and free our little robot buddy here. So I can line up the pieces. They might just already be where they need to be, but if they aren't, I can drag them around like this. I can use the B button to move them, and then I use the A button to execute the drop, and that's how we clean things out. There I did a little drag over to clear out the little crystal pieces. Those will break if you have a combo adjacent to them, or if you just drag through them. So this speedrun is the first 5 chapters of Rescue, which means everything we're going to be doing is digging our little buddy out of the ball. There are some other modes that feature a little more variation, but this is the most straightforward category and also the shortest category. So, when I say we have to line the pieces up, took a missed drop there, that's perfectly fine. When I say we have to line the pieces up, what that means is for these rectangle shapes, we have to line up a full side. There will be later non-rectangular shapes on which we have to line up part in which we only have to basically have them touching. And the other thing we can do is we can line pieces up above each other on the ball. If it's a perfect alignment, you as I do here, we can drop like that. You can stack them. That's actually the only way you can interact with a piece that is completely covered on the top. So that's the thing that factors into the speedrun, is that you cannot interact with a piece that is covered up on the top, even if you can see its side. So you have to be careful of that when we get to the later levels and start digging out sideways. So here we start to see these alternative shaped pieces, the ones that are not rectangles, and the L's in particular, they will break very fast because they only have to be touching on one of the short sides. So, one of the things that we are going to do here is we're going to try to... You saw me take 1 misdrop earlier. We get 3 strikes per level, that's 3 misdrops. And if we hit all 3 of those, we have to start the level from scratch. See, there's a misdrop there because I misread the situation, or things did not resolve as quickly as I thought they would. I'm not sure which, actually. So we just need to get this block out of here and we're done with this level. If I hit 3 misdrops, I gotta start the entire level. Not the chapter, but the level over. And in some of the later levels can be over a minute long, so it's not something that we want to be doing in a speedrun. There isn't any real risk of that happening in the part of the game that you're going to see during my speedrun today, but if we were playing the full 10 chapters, it would definitely be a possibility that that could happen. In fact, my PV does include 1 death. So here we need to get a 3x3 dug out. We're almost there. This should do it, I think. Yep, and we're good, and we're out. That's a clunk. We're out of chapter 1. Not fast, but this is a commentary session. So, we've been working with... You've gotten a chance to kind of see how the basic mechanics work. At this point in the game, most of the levels we have to dig out a 2x2 square on the core, and it's going to be 2 shapes. As we progress in the game, we'll see 3x3s and 4x4s. And we'll also see 3 shapes. We won't see as many as 4 shapes, although that does happen in the full speedrun. So now I want to mention this power-up that I have sitting here. So there are 6 tiers of power-ups, and there are 3 ways to get them. One is that fire block that I just acquired. Another is to get a 20 chain in one go. And the third way is that if you look on the right middle between the clock And the top, there's a meter over there that will also fill up and give you power-ups over time. So there's 6 power-ups. The first is this little rocket, and that's probably, honestly, the more, as you level up the power-ups, it's not random what you get. As you earn more power-ups, your power-up levels up until it maxes out. And we probably want to be spamming rockets most of the time. The other one that's really useful is the second tier, which is the dynamite. So you can see the rocket, it just fires, and it's going to blow away a small area. The second tier is the dynamite. It will blow out a wider area. It won't actually blow out the center where you fire it. It'll blow out a circle around it. That's big. That's really good when we need to clear out a 3x3 or a 4x4. Less good when we're focused on a 2x2. The third tier of power-up is the magnet, which we saw one of those. It pulls pieces off the ball and you can move it around a bit. It's I would actually rather have rockets than that pretty much all the time. The fourth tier is the atom, and the atom peels off the entire outer layer of the ball, which sounds great, but the limitation with the atom is that we don't need to dig the entire ball out, we just need to dig out one layer, so it's pretty slow and it's not targeted enough to do what we want to do. So that one I try to avoid in this run. If we do the hide and seek run, there's a couple of situations where it would make sense to use the atom. Fifth tier of power-up is the big bomb, which blows a big hole in the first layer and a not quite so big hole in the second layer, and that one's really nice except for how long it takes to build up. And the last layer, last power-up is the ray gun, which is really good for blasting to the core really quickly, and if you happen to carry your power-up that long, it can make quick work of a 2x2 level. Wow, there's a long chain running off in the background, so we gotta wait for that. That'll kind of segue once I'm done with the laser. We can talk about what's going on with that. So, I haven't even gotten to the point where I've mentioned how the game puts pressure on you. So, in this game, if you look in the bottom right corner, there's a clock. That clock will, if you don't drop pieces, that clock will start ticking. Eventually that clock will turn from blue to yellow. When the clock is yellow, the ball will start advancing towards the screen. And if the ball advances towards the screen and bops the screen, it will force drop the piece. That's not inherently a problem. It won't hurt you if it's a valid drop, but it can force you to make invalid drops that will count towards your strikes. If you let it go past yellow, it will end up red, and it will start advancing towards the screen about twice as fast. So that's not really going to happen in the category that we're playing here, but as we progress into the chapters past 5 and towards chapters 8, 9, and 10, the game makes itself more difficult, not by increasing the complexity of what you have to do on the ball. It makes it more difficult by speeding up what it asks you to do, which, quite frankly, is fine. We're in a speed run, so we aren't too worried about that. When you get to the last few levels, it does actually get tricky. So, I missed my clunk there, but that's fine. So, there's another big mechanic I haven't gotten to tell you about, and that is power pieces. So when I break combos, the ball starts to get rained on with these brightly colored things, and you get these glowy pieces. Those are called power pieces, and they do 3 distinct things. The first is when you drop on them, notice that the combo that activates goes much slower. So the slower combo is helpful in a number of ways if you're playing for score. One is that it makes it easier to build long chains. Another is that when you have a combo going, you can if you have a combo and you start it with a power piece, the little white pieces, they're called fuses, and they are actually grabbable when you start them with a slow piece. So you can actually pick up a fuse and drag it into another combo. That's a fuse chain, and it increases your multiplier. If you see that little 1x next to my score, that's my multiplier. And one of the ways to increase your multiplier is to make fuse chains. Multiplier goes up to 20. You can get 10x out of your multiplier by making fuse chains, and the other 10x you have to get, the other 9x or so, you have to get by making gravity chains, which is basically you pull a piece out, something drops, and it causes a combo. So you can only get 10x either way, so if you want to max out your multiplier, you have to do both. In hide and seek, we actually have a reason to farm power-ups, and we have a little exploit we can do that lets us do a little quick trick that counts as both a fuse combo and a gravity combo at the same time, so we can that gets the multiplier up quickly. And okay, that was a misdrop. It gets the multiplier up quickly, and it helps us get more power-ups, but it's not worth the time in this mode. There's a specific reason we do that in the other category. So the second thing that power pieces do, and it's a lot simpler, is that power pieces can climb up a level when you drag them. So here's the first stage that has 3 shapes, and they're all the rectangular shapes, which means it's actually a substantial jump in difficulty. You're going to see that I'm activating a lot less stuff on the ball at this point, just because the pieces don't allow me to start to clear out a ton anymore, and I'm starting to have to go hunting for extra pieces to work with. But here's an example. I can climb that piece up just a little bit there. The third thing the power pieces do is that they refill your timer. So I mentioned that the timer in the bottom right is counting against you. You refill that timer by making combos out of or with power pieces. So I think I've covered most of the game's core mechanics, and it only took me about 12 minutes to do so. So now at this point, you can actually kind of see how the game works. To the rest of my notes, I covered the power-ups. So now I can actually talk a bit about the speedrun. So again, we're focused on digging out cores as quickly as we can. And so there's a number of strategies we want to use. In this area, you'll see that I'm avoiding dropping on those power pieces if I can, because they are going to cause slower combos than my alternatives. I also am keeping detailed notes on the size. I have detailed notes on the size and composition of every level. The most important thing for me to know is how big of a core I have to dig out, because that allows me to tailor my attack so that I'm not doing superfluous work. I wouldn't say I have it memorized at this point, but I have a good idea. So here's a mechanic I haven't mentioned. I've got this block over 4 crystals. If I tap the grab button, I can pull a power piece out of thin air. And I'm gonna do it again. So there's some use to that to help clear out some of these odd shapes and actually make use of the crystals. One other little trick I use a lot in this speedrun is, this game's very RNG dependent. That shouldn't be surprising. It's a puzzle game. Sometimes we get back-to-back pieces and we can't really use multiples. So one thing we can do to get around that is we can quickly double tap and do a double drop if we have 2 of the same piece clogging our queue. So I can do it like I did it there because I didn't like what I had. And basically, you can always get away with you can almost always get away with a quick double drop to get rid of stuff you don't need. As I can see down here, we are blocked on this T, and if we get this, we should be out of the level. It's a 3x3. So we always have that option to do a quick double drop, unless the ball is max height. There's a point where the ball is built up so tall that there's no room to do an additional drop. Sometimes you can get away with 3 or even 4, although you don't want to mash in that case. You actually kind of want to hit it with a little slower rhythm. So this is our first 4x4. And the trick on this one is that it's a 4x4, but we've got 2 of the easiest pieces to work with, because these are the non-rectangular pieces. Again, the rectangular pieces are the ones that cause all the trouble. It's a clunk. But for that stage, it's a big target, but it's a little easier than it otherwise would be, because we don't have to worry about the shapes causing us trouble. So now, difficulty is going to start stepping up a little bit. This is about the point where the run starts getting harder, and I have been neglecting power-ups for most of this run because I'm trying to do a lot more talking. But that'll get us out of this stage real quick. There's no point in holding onto that laser any further. Actually probably should have waited one level, to be honest, but it's not a big deal. So, this is going to be the first stage where it's not almost all 2s the entire way. I was trying to quickly do that double drop, and I messed it up. So this one is actually a 3x3. We got a lot of this particular shape at this particular time. So we're going to set this up in the hopes of being able to get most of what we need out of the way early. I think do we have the 3x3? We do. So you can see here that we're going to start focusing on a little more targeted attack at this point. So I'm going to have to do a few more of these commentary runs, because I need to leave some slots for donations and announcements. So this is another one. This is another 3x3. Still 2 shapes. But towards the end of chapter 4, things do start kicking up in difficulty a little bit. So I think we're blocked on this corner down here. Yep, there we go. It can be a little hard to discern exactly what you're blocked on, especially when you're doing a 3x3 or a 4x4. So here, this is another one, another 3-shaped ball. It's offset by the fact that this one is only asking for a 2x2 dig. So that'll simplify things a bit. So one thing I didn't mention yet, and it hasn't come up, but it very well could at any point, is that we can actually drag pieces diagonally through a gap. So like it doesn't, in ways that like physically it wouldn't work, but I can pull a piece out if I have if I can, how do I want to say this? A diagonal move is a single move. It's not like if I move left down, it's not left then down. I can execute a all-in-one-go diagonal move. And that can be very useful for pulling a piece out of a difficult situation. So here we want a 4x4. Fortunately, we don't really need the pieces that we have. So for 4x4, we need to clean up a bunch of leftover junk. So I'm going to make sure I want both of these to activate, because that should be the only thing holding me in this level. I'm gonna go back to the 3 rectangles. Very similar to last time. It actually isn't really asking for any more out of us. It's honestly kind of a surprise that they gave two such similar levels so close to each other. Alright, I don't need this green, so now I have to go do a panic search for how do I get rid of this green. I want to try to hold on to that power up for the next world. It'll be more useful there. This should get us out of here. When we dig out the ball, we don't need daylight all the way to the top. It just needs to be uncovered at one level. And that's very similar to what I was talking about with being able to break blocks. So in order to be able to break blocks, they need to have daylight above them. So if they're entirely covered from the side, you can't break them. But they don't have to be fully exposed on the top all the way out. They just have to have one square of daylight somewhere above them on the shape. So, but like down here, like this T is barely exposed, but that's enough. And then I need, if I can get a power piece, I can clear that. No, this one blocking. Can't always tell. Sometimes the shapes peel off the ball a little early and make it hard to tell. So this would, I've been motor mouthing for the better part of 20 minutes. This would definitely be a good time to give me a break and read a donation or an announcement. So we do still have that. So I did a triple drop there. A little aggressive to try to burn 3 blocks like that, but it was the right play in the situation. So I thought we had dynamite. So we're gonna try to peel off a relatively broad area here. But most of what we need to do in this lower zone is going to be with the L block, so we can kind of clean that up. Oh, that was a silly mistake on my part. Here you can see that's another case of we can interact with that block. We got just enough of it exposed. See, my goal in this is for the marathon is to be sub 40. So this last stage, we do need to do a 4x4 dig, and we have 3 shapes, but they are all the zigzag shapes. They are the easier shapes to work with compared to if we've had a few where we've had all the rectangles, and those levels are much more difficult. As you start to get into 3 shapes, it becomes harder to receive power-ups by combo unless you go out of your way to make slow chains. The risk with slow chains in a speedrun is they are slow. They do take time to actually activate, especially if they are either directly in the path of what you're doing. Like that one, I had to wait for that to clear in order to finish that up. The other way they can get in the way is if it's at the very end of your play, and you have to wait for it to finish before you can leave the level. So I'm trying to look around and identify where my problems are. I think I see it. So I think it is under here. I think it's just this one T, and I think once we have this, we're out. Alright, we have 1 episode left, and every stage here is going to have, it's going to be a 3x3 dig with 3 shapes. 4 gathers, thank you for the follow. probably shouldn't call out people by name, but I am showing it on the screen, so it's always a touchy subject. So let's see. Yeah, so all these next 10 levels are all going to be very similar in conception. They're all the same size, they're all the same complexity. The exact nature of the pieces in play it's not always exactly the same pieces, but it's basically the same idea the entire time. So this would, again, be another good window for any announcements. So I really should not let my power-up reach magnet level. That's a little less than ideal. Just trying to get something down here so that I can do some clean out. So we finally got our first case of hitting yellow time. So you can hear it beeping at me, and then when I clear something, you can kind of hear it pulls back, and then you get the beep again. Nothing that's happening at this point is going to pose a real threat. It's just that I do need to actually go find the pieces that I need to accomplish what is blocking me at any given moment. So we can step this. What's the blocker? This. So even though that piece is entirely underneath other stuff and we can't grab it because there's stuff on top of it, because it's uncovered one layer above, we can actually interact with it. And we could use that to our advantage to get out of what might otherwise be a bit of a troublesome and long-term dig. So we got a power-up. I see that fire block over there. That's another power-up. I do want to grab that, even if I have to put in a little work to do it. Now, this is another situation where I'm looking around. What is going to result in getting the most garbage out of my way. So we'll take a little more time to set that up because I know that we are blocked on that specific shape. If I yoink that out, we're done. Looked like we might have had a lot more to dig there, but just gotta get that out of there. Don't know if I covered details about the wild piece. So I did show earlier that you can make a power piece out of the crystal blocks, which you can do if you can line up the cursor directly over it. But power pieces don't have that fixed cursor shape. I should say wild pieces don't have that fixed cursor shape. So in that case, you cannot do that because you also cannot drop. I can't drop here. I can't drop off to the side with the wild. Whereas if I line this up like this, I can drop off to the side with that one because it has a fixed position. So the wild pieces actually have some additional limitations that the fixed shape ones do not have. So they aren't always strictly better. Especially when you need to reach underneath the side of the ball. Oftentimes you have to do a side drop to make that work. Let's see. Here, I set up for a side drop there. So I'm gonna try to steal that power up. Because I knew that was in there, and I knew I had a valid play on it. So we need to clear this out. We have yellow and a red in our way. Now here we get piece blocked, which is a very common thing to happen in this game. That's actually the most punishing part of the RNG is not your drops, it's not your drops or the ball layout itself, it's the interaction of when you need something and you can't get it. Here we ended up with not great pieces, so we started digging out one part of the ball and kind of had to go walk over to a completely different part of the ball to continue progressing. We want dynamite at this size, but the dynamite's going to blow away a ring around the outside here. That'll cover a good chunk of area. There's an example of that diagonal move I mentioned earlier. I was able to... That piece was hemmed in there a bit, and I was able to pop it out. Nope. That was too greedy, but it's okay. I didn't even need to do it. Yeah, that was me trying to mash through to the next level and falling asleep. Now I'm hoping I can find something to do with this. There was just enough going on. So if I clear this out, get a little bit better of a dig there. Using that piece. Now we've got. So I've got my vertical situation figured out. I need to figure out what I'm going to do horizontally. Thanks for the good luck, Anthony. Welcome in. We're still doing a commentary / warm-up run. My trick is, I have so much to say in the first 20 minutes, and then it kind of peters out after that. So my most likely thing is that I'm gonna invite K and H onto the couch, invite Kinda Nerdy Housewife onto the couch for this game at Speedfest, as an audience proxy, basically. Because I think that's gonna be the most interesting way to set up commentary. So, I'm just trying to mill through until I can get what I need. But while we're stuck waiting on this L, we might as well, it's not a, no pun intended, we might as well grab a power-up. Considering this is a commentary run, this pacing's not bad. It's not gonna PB. It's not gonna gold, but... Alright, so I am trying to just mill that power-up out. Was waiting till I got that, because this, again, dynamite is something we really would like. It's very useful for digging out these larger areas like this. Bring this down, let's go. That yellow up there. Missed that situation entirely. This should get us out though. This isn't bad. Again, if I were going for a PB, this wouldn't be good enough, but I'm not. Alright, so this is the last stage of the category we're doing. One thing I never talked about was the crystal tower. I can remember to bring that up. So this is the last stage of the category we're doing. It's a 4x4 ball, 5 deep, with 3 shapes, 2 of which are rectangles. It's a pretty substantially difficult level, even compared to what we've been doing, although not compared to what happens in, say, at the end of, say, chapter 10, or even the end of, like, chapter 7, although one thing that's kind of interesting is that the game actually does get a little bit easier after the middle of chapter 7. Late chapter 7, early chapter 8 is actually a bit of an easier situation before chapter 9 really picks things back up. I'm trying to dig out that power up because It's pretty much always worth it to try to grab power-ups. But we gotta be careful how much extra space we let it go. So we don't want to go too far afield. We don't want to be wasting time on stuff we don't need to do. Make sure that the things we do are the things we need to do, and I think we just need to get this out of there, and that's time. That was a really good chapter 5. Now this is where I need to thank Midwest Speedfest for having me, and shoutouts to FFR Pro for moderating this game. Shoutouts to Silly Larry for making me run this game. Shoutouts to all the rhythm gamers for having nothing to do with this game, but for helping me grow my stream. Anyway, my name's Jamage. Follow me on the twitches.tv and all of that nonsense, and we'll reset this run. That's enough commentary for one day. I really want to have printed notes in front of me.